Here we go.
We're talking to Jeff.
My office has a newsletter, so sometimes you have to make sure.
Do you mind? I'm so sorry. I am so sorry to ask.
I'm happy to do that. Yes, thank you for the reminder.
I have like I can. Oh, you have. Oh, yeah, sure. That would be perfect. Thank you. Oh, okay.
Thank you so much. Mike's running late. He said to go ahead and start. What'd you say?
Good evening, everyone. It is period after 7. We're going to go ahead and get started. If you want to know, I see many familiar faces in the room. For those that I haven't yet had the pleasure to formally have a conversation with, my name is Yvonne Zanone, and I'm the Title I manager. Other FCPS staff in the room with us this evening are Kathleen Waltz, Executive Director of Professional Learning and Family Engagement.
Hi, everybody.
Leona Smith, Director of Equity and Family Engagement. Gina Toller, Educational Specialist, Title I. Lisa Fowler, Educational Specialist, Title I. And we're going to change the order. I know I attached the agenda, and we're going to start with the vote this evening. The chair of TPAC is running a few minutes late, and he needs to be the Ho is smiling. And Christina and Samson are online. We have about 8 participants virtually right now. But I'm going to go ahead and kick it off this evening by just, first of all, beginning with what our outcomes are for the evening. So we will this evening get to a vote. We have a vacancy on the executive board, and there will be a vote to fill that vacancy this evening. We're going to familiarize ourselves with the FCPS internal auditing process, and that is definitely part of the strategic plan towards resource stewardship. And so I'll introduce our Auditor General shortly. We're going to gain a deeper understanding of the advanced academic process, and then we're going to learn a little more about the role of the AARTs in the Title I school. There's an exciting opportunity this year for the first time in our Title I schools. So that team will share about that opportunity and what that role looks like in a Title I school. So Title I expectations, you're here this evening because under the Elementary and Education's Elementary and Secondary Education Act, I need to slow down, my brain is ahead of my mouth. There are requirements around family engagement. And ultimately, our job is to conduct conduct outreach, engage families, ensure families are involved in consultation, and we're required to have both a written family engagement policy, both at the division level and at the school level. And you should have received that at the beginning of the school year from your school. If you haven't, it is also posted on school websites and also the division website. So if you have any questions about that, you can always email one of us and we can direct you to that. The role of the TPAC committee, why are you here? Ultimately, it's to increase family engagement and Title I planning, strengthen the school-home partnerships, develop leadership and advocacy skills. Ultimately, you're attending tonight, the information that you gleaned. It's our hope that you take that back and share it with your school principal and with your school community through various platforms. And I'm going to finish this and then I'll turn it over to the chair. And also respond to the charge from the school board in an annual report. And that is presented to the school board the last Wednesday in May every year. And that report is written, it's generated from this group and presented by the executive board during that meeting. So as we go on through the year, you'll be hearing more about that. So, Mike, I am glad to be passing the torch. You're going right here.
Good evening, thank you for coming out. I'm Mike Wilson, the chair of the executive board. And so, you want me to start with the election process? Okay. So in the agenda, which
I must have left it on the copier.
okay.
I don't see the agenda.
Okay. So first order of business, we have one vacancy in the executive board, and following our first meeting, somebody expressed interest. She's actually not here tonight. Her name is Josie Rivera, and she, if you remember, when we talked about the survey, she was one of the folks who gave feedback on how she would meet with the principal and talk about it. So I wasn't surprised. I was like, I think we got one. So she was informed me in advance. Yes, she's from Texas. She informed me in advance that she wouldn't be able to be at the meeting, but she's interested. So essentially, just by a show of hands, all in favor of her as a member of the executive board. All opposed? All right, I'll tell you what she said. I think that's all that I really have to say. We're going to have a presentation from Esther Coe, who is the auditor, the Office of the Auditor General. Sorry.
It's a combo question from you and Yvonne. So we're talking about, she was hoping that we would take away the information we have from here to talk to the principal, which I can come up with some ideas for that, but also out to the community through different methods. And so I was like, is there a repository of knowledge available to us somewhere, like a Google Drive? Do we have like a book for best practices? Because I don't want to try to recreate the wheel. We need to get some ideas, ensure that I'm within the guidelines and regulations of the county in doing so for the outreach.
Well, there's not, fortunately for us, because, whoever are not employees, it's not like you're violating anything. There's a way that, and because the relationship between parent representative and principal is different in every school, there's no one size fits all. And you might have missed it. Last thing I was talking about different ways to engage with the principal. It can be an email about what the meeting was, and I think we are sending them like summations after each meeting now, some kind of information.
Yes, so following every meeting, I send the PowerPoint electronically. I'm sitting at my computer, but we're recording this session, and the PowerPoint is built into that. And the link to the recording is also provided so that either you can go back and rewatch, or you can share the link with other families or other stakeholders within your community. And any handouts for the evening are also included in that follow-up email as well. If there is an exit ticket, which we normally try to get input from you every evening, I compile that, and that information is also within that follow-up email. And really what you want to do is, with regards to your school community, what a lot of our principals are doing is when the TPAC members are coming back to their schools and they're sharing the information, it's a collaboration between the parent and the principal to decide how and what information may be shared, because it could be shared, as Mike said, a number of ways: through a newsletter, through a PTA meeting, through a Connect Ed, or an email, maybe a tweet. It all depends on the communication that you would engage in with your principal. And it's really about fostering those relationships between you and your school administrator.
Where can we get that link from?
It will be in the follow-up email. My goal is when the recording comes into my inbox to be able to, I have to do some formatting and some uploading in to YouTube, and my goal is to have that done in that email to go out by close of business this Friday. So it can take anywhere from 24 to 48 hours for that to come in my inbox. And then by the time I get it converted into an MP4 and uploaded, and so I safely say Friday, it may come out sooner.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yes, and you said a copy of the last recording from October is in
that previous email. Yes. Yes.
Executive meetings, is there recording or presentations that you agree that they took of that, or?
They're not, it's smaller and it's more brainstorming. So anybody's welcome to sit in on it, but it's not the same, you don't have the same follow-up or outreach after, so a lot of it's kind of looking ahead to the coming meetings. So it's more organizational.
What is available is, because this is a citizen advisory committee, the information, I take minutes, and the board reviews and approves those. Those minutes are uploaded to the school board citizen advisory school board website. So in that email, thank you for that reminder, I will make sure that the link is also provided to that, so that you're able to access all of the minutes from both these committee meetings and the executive board meetings.
And it really, one of the aims of your role and communicating with the principal is to build and develop a relationship. Again, whether it's an email, whether it's a phone call, whether it's a sit-down meeting. And the Title I office has done a lot of work in really communicating and connecting this community purpose and function with administrators, so they understand what role it has in elevating and really following through what the mandate is for Title I. But my son asked me today, and it's probably the best way you can explain it. Somebody asked you, so what is that gatehouse stuff? What do you mean about it? I said, well, we want to make sure that students in Title I schools have everything, same resources, same opportunities to access that one non-Title I schools have. So anybody, whatever level of coming in, comes and asks, what's the purpose of the committee? We start with there. As you get a greater understanding, you'll be able to enhance that. But there's not a wrong way to start a conversation. Open-minded, respectful, and just be willing to learn, because you're going to learn things from talking to your administrator that you didn't know before. If we have a question, there's a lot of extra questions and a lot of takeaways from presentations where you have, do we have this, or why don't we have it? And then get the background on why something is or isn't in place. But they appreciate that input because it gives them a different way to look at it. Are there any more questions? I will ask whoever didn't have a chance to make sure you sign in on your way out. And I think now we can go.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Esther Ko. I am the Auditor General. And I know that at this time we all are tired after a whole day of work. So I love to walk around and to make sure that this is like an entertaining and, attractive session. Because when you hear the term audit, you may think about completely the opposite way, right? I don't know how to explain to my son. I have two as well, 8 and 10. I explained to him that audit, because I do audit, is because I like numbers. And I also love money. So that's how I explain. So, but I think that I would like to make this session interactive and then to answer any questions that you may have for me. With that, if I click, good. Do I also need to do a sound check for the people online?
I just received confirmation from one of our board members that the sound is perfect.
Okay.
So you're
and I hear a
golden.
sound there too. So
Yeah,
good.
you're good.
Thank you. So, the reason why I'm here today, as many one know, and I'm really thankful for Kathleen to giving me this opportunity, is that we have been doing a lot of good things within the school system, but maybe not many people know that we have the audit office and also who we are and what we do. And here is why I'm here. So before I show up, I don't know how every one of you envision an auditor look like. Someone may say, you see someone coming from Alien. I don't have a ponytail with today. I hope I don't look like that guy. But what I always try to explain who I am is that we are a friendly auditor. And we are different from IRS, right? We tax people. And we are auditors within the school system. So that is really different than a lot of the external auditors that you may hear. Why we are here is mainly to help the school system to improve the process. And then you see a lot of words here that pretty much summarize the mission for my office. I would like to draw your attention to some of the words here. But actually, I forgot. I have a game. So let's go back to one. And don't look at your slides first. I have some true or false questions to test your knowledge. So to make sure everyone is awake. Okay, first question is, Office of Auditor General, meaning that the office that I belong to, reports to Mr. Scott Brabrand via the Division Council. Who thinks is true? If you can raise your hand. Who thinks is not true? May I ask this? Sorry, what is your name? Okay. Cole. Ho. So why? What? Oh, my last name is Cole. You see So, Ho, why? So do you know who we are reporting to? It is not to Scott.
No, I think it was just more, I kind of read the question.
Yeah. Auditor always like to ask trick questions. Thank you for the thought. So we are not reporting to Scott. So I think I'm very proud because we are one of the 3 parties within the entire school districts that report to the school directly. And one is, of course, the superintendent, and then the clerk of the board, and then the third one is myself. So we have this independent reporting line, and to us it's really important as an auditor because what we are going to be report on has to be credible to the community and credible to our employees. So that's the first tricky question, and I just have one more. The second question is, this is a little bit tougher, is that internal audit is the most effective detection method for fraud. Who thinks is true? Oh, now no one raised their hand. And Ho is the only one. Okay, who thinks it's false? Good. You can all become like an auditor. So why do you think it's false? What is the
Because-
most effective way?
Most effectively, usually somebody reporting it.
Ah,
Because by the time, whenever you're running an audit, I mean, it may take a while before you notice a discrepancy where somebody can observe a witness happening.
exactly. Thank you. So even though I have been doing as an internal auditor for quite some time, I can just tell you that we are not the most effective method. The most effective method is whistleblowing or tips, like this gentleman said. Because the insider always know more than what I know. When I come and audit, I can only do it as a sample, meaning that I can only select a few transactions, but not look at any what is happening. So we really relied on the doers, right? The teachers, the principals, community members who can let us know, maybe something may not happening correctly. It can be fraud, it can be waste or abuse. So with that, I also want to say we do maintain a anonymous hotline, so everyone can call if you don't want me to identify you or like who you are. Of course, you're welcome to come and speak with us. My office is on the 5th floor here. So talk about your family, how things going. We can also talk about anything that we can do better in the system as well. So we have a phone number. Who knows a phone number, by the way? You will get a bonus point. Maybe get a audit wave this year. In case in your school, maybe Kathleen, you want that. Then you don't need to stay in your office, you will not be audited. 571. 49. Close is 1333. Oh, you get the answer from the cheat sheet. So we have that phone number that we encourage people to call. Of course, it's on credible matters that you see something and say something. Okay, so with that, we can go in. Like now, you already gone through half of my presentation already. So our mission is indeed to provide an independent lens. And again, I cannot emphasize enough that independence is very important, that we are not, reporting within the management system, and that we can have like a outsider lens to see how things are doing. And our role is not policy making, and it's not making regulations. That's more is the management job, but our job is to ensure that the processes are working well, and there are checks and balances in the system. So we report to the school board through the audit committee. And the next slide show you who are our audit committee right now. And I believe most of you are familiar with Karen Keith Kamara. I know that she is our school board liaison with the TPAC. And she's
the only one up there that stayed.
Right, exactly, good point. So I would have 3 brand new members at least. And so it will be good to get new perspective on audit. And at the same time, we also have 2 citizen members as well. So they are Fairfax County citizens, have finance, auditing, and accounting business knowledge, and then they sit in the audit committee as well. And then we also have the non-voting members as well, and they are the superintendent, the deputy superintendent, and the chief operating officer. So it's a pretty intensive, but we get a lot out from the audit committee. So in case if you have time on a Wednesday night, it always held on a Wednesday evening, the 4th week, I believe, of the month. So you are really working to join and learn more about audit. So this is me. Just so to share a little bit about with you about myself. This is my 3rd year into FCPS, and I consider myself still very new. For example, this is my first time to meet many of you, even though I have a veteran over there, Lisa, who attended one of my presentations before. But before, I have been working with PricewaterhouseCoopers, so which is like a international accounting firm. And then before, I also worked mainly globally in Africa and also Asia, because one of my hobbies is I love traveling, and I'm sure a lot of you love that too. But my husband doesn't really like that idea since I have 2 boys studying at Mantua Elementary. And then he said, no more international traveling, stay in the community and contribute. So I said, okay to my boss, and then At that time, it happens that the Auditor General position is available, and I'm very grateful to get this opportunity. And I've grown up in Hong Kong, so all the way studied college and everything. And I'm from a grassroots family, so I always lived in government assistance, living with my parents and my sister in a 300 square feet apartment. So Title I students and the community means a lot to me because that's exactly how I grew up. And I really would like to take this opportunity, even though I am not as an educator as most of you are, but I think I can also contribute part of my resource stewardship idea and wisdom and share that with the FCPS. So that's why I'm here with the system, serving the community. And with that, then there are 4 major pillars of work that my office do. As many of you know, because we have the name audit has to be one of our bread and butters. So we do internal audit, so not surprising to you all. I put a link over there that you can read every single audit report because they are all public reports. So if you don't have anything to do at night or have trouble finding to sleep, you can get there. Yes? How much is your office? Oh, good question. I see one of the slides, which you can see, I think.
Sorry.
No. It's good. It's on slide number 10. For my office, I have a total of 8 members, including me. So 7 of us are auditors per se, and then 1 is administrative assistant. So of course, right, there are all the time that the school board members or the community members or leadership team or employees may say, you know what, Esther, I want you to audit this and audit that. There were like many topics. But as you can see, we are under resource constraints as well. So we have 7 of us. So each year we do roughly 10 or so performance audits. So performance audits, they are audits like checking performance. So for example, what is relevant to Title I is that this year, I'm very grateful that we can look at the Title I grant. I think one of the grants this year in our grant monitoring audit. So to ensure that we are in compliance with the funder requirements and to ensure that the funding is spent appropriately. We also do many school audits. So each year we touch all 200 schools, some way or some form. Sometimes we do it from the desk audit, meaning that we conduct the audit from gatehouse, and sometimes we go to the school. So you may have run into auditors in the hallway at school before. I hope that you all have a good experience working with the auditors. But again, I mean, at the end of the day, we identify, possible improvement points for the school to improve. And all the reports are available online. And then you say, you know what, Esther, I have so much things to do, and I have work, I have family, I don't have time to read all the reports. And I provide a solution to you, is that we create something called the audit bus. So it's like a bees that going around you about audit that you will like remember what we have done. So if I may flip over to this slide. So we create a audit bus newsletters, and we try to summarize all the audits that we conducted in a digestible format, maybe 2 pages every quarter. So if you could sign up for it, it's under the news you choose. For FCPS, are you all familiar with news you choose? So there is the Office of Auditor General, and then I encourage you to sign up to receive this newsletter.
How often?
Yes.
How often do you all meet with foreign dignitaries? Inspector General of Indonesian Ministry of Education?
Good catch, you're reading.
Like, wait, what? They're
So,
like that? Okay.
So one of our goals, right, is to become a world-class internal audit function. So what's happening this time is they actually reach out to us. This is sponsored by a U.S. Agency of International Development grant. So they obtained a grant and provided that to the Indonesian government, and they work with GMU. And then they reach out to me and say, you know what, Esther, we got a delegation from Indonesia. They really want to learn more about your office. I was like, absolutely, please come. So on that day, we received over 20 of them. They all wear like the Indonesian shirt and like really festive when they come in. And then we presented who we are, what we do about the independence. It was a shock to them, actually, that all our reports are public. So in the other part of the world, the auditor reports is actually something secret, that they put it under the table or something that they don't show it with the community members. So we tell them, you know what, in order to have the true accountability, you have to make it public. So our reports are in the public domain, except for some reports that may have the exemption requirements, such as safety and security related to a particular school, or with a identifiable, personnel issues, then we will not be able to put it publicly, but otherwise all the reports are available. Yes, is there a question here? Did I see a
I
hand?
had a question. Who audits your office?
Who audit my office? Good question. So in our office, is it the slide that I'm going to talk about? I actually have a slide about that. So I think this one. So our office follows the government auditing standard. So it's something called the GAO, the Yellow Book. And why we call it like generally Yellow Book is because the cover of it is yellow. So we, yeah, they said that they are running out of paper, like some of my friends working at GAO, so that they're using yellow paper to make this booklet. But anyway, they have very tight requirements about what we have to follow as an auditors. And then we comply with this standard. And then we attest to that in each of the report that we issue, that we say we comply with the Yellow Book auditing standards. And on top of that, we'll also be subject to peer review by the government as well. So the auditors are also being audited. So no one is exempted then. Does it answer your question now?
Does it happen annually?
No, like every 3 to 5 years. So with that, I think my time is almost up. Maybe the last thing I can leave you all on is this slide. This shows you the FY 2020 audit plan that we're doing this year. And this audit plan every year is being approved by the audit committee first, and then approved also by the full school board. And then this year, we are doing a mixture of different audits, as you can see. We are doing business process audits that impact schools and departments and offices. We are also looking at contracts, the construction contracts, because we're spending a lot of money on construction and renovations. We also looked at grants. We mentioned about that. We also do a time and attendance audit, looking at how we charge time, because here at FCPS, the most expensive thing is our time, right? We are not selling table and chairs, we're selling our expertise, or we are providing our expertise. We have also conducted safety and security audit this year as well on schools. Any questions on this slide?
Sorry, so do you do your audits by fiscal year, not by school year?
Yes, it's by fiscal year. So our audit, the plan itself is designed for the fiscal year from July 1 through June 30th. However, our audit time frame can be different, meaning that the plan is approved for this fiscal year, but when we do the audit, we may look at historical school year data, and that may be by school, and then it's depending on what we are looking at. Any questions on it? Good? Okay, so let me just make sure I did not skip anything important. We talked about the hotline number, and I know you all can remember now. It's the 1333 at the last 4 digits. Maybe with that, the last thing I want to leave with you all is that I know that we only have like 30 minutes of talking, and you may have further questions for me. That my email is listed here. So first, does anyone have a last name less than 2 letters? Maybe Ho, is it your last? Your last name?
No, demoralized, but it's got 2 space.
Ah. Oh, okay, so you may be able to compete with me. It's because I have the shortest email within SCPS. So it's YKO. So even though you may forget everything that I talked about tonight, that's okay. You can always contact me via that email. And again, I'm at Gatehouse here on the 5th floor. If you happen to come here for meetings or for lunch, feel free to stop by and then we can chat further. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
It's a special talent to make dry information. Not the person I'd like to hang out with, not talk about audits, but I really enjoyed it. Thank you. All right, next we have, talking about the advanced academic process, Kirsten Maloney and Patty Edwards, Chris Ressler, and Jamie Wilson. You don't want to stand or sit? It's up to you.
Yeah, okay. All right, so it's really hard to follow Esther. Thanks, Esther.
Sorry. You're just being.
We just brought our questions today. So thanks for having us here tonight to talk to you about advanced academic programs. I'm Kirsten Maloney, I'm the coordinator. And
Chris Rosler, I'm the advanced academics resource teacher at Bucknell Elementary School.
I'm Patty Edwards. I'm the advanced academic resource teacher at Glen Forest Elementary.
And I'm Jamie Wilson. I'm the advanced academic resource teacher at Riverside Elementary School.
so we don't have any slides tonight, but we got a list of questions, and we're going to take turns answering some of the questions that you all had. Before we dive into the questions, I'll just give a quick overview of our office in advanced academics at Central Office. We are a team of 10, including one administrative assistant, and we serve K through 12. Our role, people often think that we're enforcing things. We actually are not enforcers. We are the consultants that support the schools. Our big thing that we work on is our K through 12 continuum of services. So there are, I call it the blessing and the curse. We are the envy of many other places in the country when it comes to advanced academic services because we have multiple entry points and a lot of different options to meet the various needs of students. But what that also means is that it can be very confusing. There are a lot of pathways for students, but a lot of the questions that we got tonight were about level 4. I just want to, as we set all this up, remind everybody level 4 is really just one of the 4 levels that we have available in elementary. It gets the most attention, but we're really proud of all the work that we do with the whole continuum, and know that there's pathways for all students as they go from elementary to middle to high school throughout all of the offerings that we have. The other things that we do in our office, in addition to supporting schools with implementing the continuum, is we do a lot of professional development. That's another thing. I taught in Baltimore County, Maryland before I came to Fairfax, and I can tell you that we did not get anywhere near the professional development that Fairfax provides. Did any of you teach in other places that?
I taught PG County for 1 year, and
Okay.
it wasn't anything like this.
I mean, I would spend my own money, and it would be up to me to go find what I was going to be doing. And this was, I'm old, so it might be very different now. So, but at least when I was there, I know when I talk to my friends in other parts of the country, they can't believe the amount of professional development that we have available to our teachers in Fairfax. So we're really proud of that, and that's where we spend the bulk of our time in our office, is we put on August Institutes, Winter Institutes, Summer Institutes, not just for elementary, but we do things for the secondary folks as well. We have a lot of networking meetings for teachers for different purposes, for principals for different purposes. We also run curriculum days where we provide a sub, and we also provide the resources. We give the books that teachers would need to implement what they would be teaching on all of the curriculum that's on our menu, which is a lot of different options that people can use, teachers can use. And we run probably about 12 academy courses. The academy courses are, teachers can sign up and take 1 to 3 credit courses that are either online or face-to-face or hybrid. And we run those, so we recruit the instructors, we write the curriculum for that, and I think some of these folks are teachers. So we appreciate that. so we do, the bulk of our time is spent on supporting schools, on putting on professional development, and then we're coming up on the time of year where we really do a lot with screening. So when we screen in the fall or in the spring, we screen about 6,000 files each spring. And that's a lot. And these folks are responsible for putting together those files, which they'll talk about in a little bit. But that's a huge job for them, and a lot on our end to manage. But we have it down to a science. Yes, ma'am.
The pause and rewind. When taking that all the information there, the 6,000. So you all, you and how many other people?
That's a great question. We have a question about that coming up. So we'll talk.
It's not just 10 people.
Okay.
Yeah.
6,000. I was like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, rewind?
Yes.
That's all for level 4, or is that
That's
for?
just for
That's
level
just for level 4.
Yeah.
For full-time advanced academic.
Yeah. And I don't want to steal from, we assigned questions, so Jamie's going to talk about that one in a little bit. But,
Where did the questions come? You guys made the question?
We did.
Planning meeting. I'm gonna be there next week. Is there childcare for this too?
Yes, there are.
They're good questions. They're good.
We have some of the best junk food aside of 95.
Okay. Like, read out the questions too. So.
Yeah, we'll read them before we get to each one of them. I just wanted to make sure, just to give some context to the work that we do, those are the big buckets for our office. And then, so the first couple of questions that came in had to do with data, and those fall mainly to me, but you won't have to listen to me too much longer because I'm going to turn it over to these people for the fun part. But when we talk about data, the first questions were about what demographic data is collected by us, how might we look at what are some new ways that we might look at the data, how are we using the data, and what is it telling us about applicants versus matriculants. So I would say there are a number of different data. We're constantly looking at data. And one of those people in my office actually is a data manager. And I thank goodness for him every single day because he actually is able to pretty quickly turn around things that we get asked for frequently for requests from school board members or community members, and that we use to guide everything that we do. So one thing that we look at very regularly is the percent of subgroup overall that we have participating in our various levels of service for levels 2 through 4. And all of that is public, and I'm happy to give it. If you wanted to send anything out afterwards, Yvonne, we can send you that. But it's also within Word docs already for presentations we've done for the school board. But we're constantly looking at where do we have gaps in our representation, and working with schools on how our Young Scholars model, which is another thing that we do a lot with, that is our model that we use to try to close gaps that we have in our identification right now. So have you guys talked much about strategic plan yet this year?
Probably not to the extent, so feel free.
So in the strategic plan, there are quite a few measures around academics, and one of them is closing gaps. So the current way, we used to look at advanced academic identification as like, here is a pie makes up 100%. And we would look at what the different percentages were of each of the different subgroups in it, and that would add up to 100%. And then you always had to juxtapose that against what are the demographics of Fairfax County. We do a similar look now, but I think it's a little bit easier to understand, whereas we look at each subgroup and we look at percents of subgroups. So if you were to take, for example, all of the white students that we have in the grades where you're eligible for level 4, so grades 3 through 8, where you could be eligible for level 4, and then what percent of that one group is eligible, because what we want to look at is how disparate are those groups, and how can we get that percentage of eligible of a subgroup to be more even across all the groups. So that's what we're constantly looking at, and we do have some gaps right now, particularly when we look at level 4. And I will provide that it's a chart that looks like this when you get it. But right now, if we were to look at level 4 and students who are receiving level 4, overall as a district, we have about 26%. And we are well represented in our Asian, which is 42%, and white, which is 29% groups. Until those are a little bit over the 26% that we have as a whole. And we are underrepresented in Black, which is 17%, and Hispanic, which is 10%. So those are the those guide us in everything we do. Those are where we're having conversations about how are we identifying, what are we looking for? Are we looking for things in all the possible ways that we can? And we work very closely with the ESOL office, with the special education office, to try to and read all the current things that are coming out to make sure that we're doing as much as we can. Like I mentioned earlier, Young Scholars is our huge push, and the Young Scholars model has a lot of different strategies within it. And we're super excited that all three of these folks in all of the Title I schools have a full-time person, because for about the past 5 years, in every single report that our advisory committee, we have an advisory committee too, has put out, says we need full-time resource teachers. Because when you hear what they do in a little bit, you're going to understand why you can't do that part-time, which is what all of our schools have had for years. They've been staffed with a half-time resource teacher, and we've had some schools that would put money into having a whole. Now we just make it for Title I schools. We give them the whole, and that way the principals can, some of them, like Patty's school, take their Title I money and still use it to have even more than one resource teacher. And then, but there are lots of other ways that principals may need to be spending their money, so that gives them, they don't have to worry about using it to have the 0.5 resource teacher. Let's see. So we also look at Young Scholars data, and we look at whether or not they are enrolling in, are they being identified for level 2, 3, and 4, and are they, when they go off to middle school and high school, are they enrolling in honors courses, and are they enrolling in AP and IB courses? So that label that they get that's in the student information system follows them up, and it's a good signal for the directors of student services and the counselors when they're doing academic advising, and it gives us good data about, is the Young Scholars model effective? So I will say that the data does show that Young Scholars model is impactful in that way, but what it's also telling us is we need to find a lot more Young Scholars. So we're really good in some schools at finding them, and we're working in some others at, it's a constant education that we're doing about what the model's about. And I think we've gotten a lot stronger, and having a full-time person certainly makes a big difference with that. We use all that data to set goals for schools. There is the new equity dashboard this year.
Just want to mention, if there's anything they don't cover, just to give them time.
Okay. All right. We also are constantly looking at data about who is in the pool, who's not in the pool. The pool is one thing that I think one of the questions was, what are the trends in, I don't know if it specifically came out in the next question, but I'll just talk about it now. The trends in Title I versus non-Title I schools. Oh, let me answer about the matriculants first, and then I'll move on to that. So matriculants, so this is something that I struggle with. Our purpose for level 4 really isn't that is a ticket to success that's any different than any of our others. What level 4 and level 2 and level 3 are about from our philosophy is, what does this student need right now to make sure they are making growth? So it's about, for us, it's about differentiation. It's not about, we expect that this child will graduate with more honors or go to an Ivy League. It's not, that's not really what we're trying to do. And that's why we're constantly out here talking about how there are lots of pathways, and students who aren't identified for level 4 are still going to have lots of opportunities to be very successful. So we have talked about whether or not that would be data that we would look at, but between it not really being the philosophy of why we do what we do, and because of the manpower and limited resources that it would take to do longitudinal study like that, it hasn't been something that's been prioritized. That would be a research project beyond the capacity of our office.
Kirsten, before you go on, because you're saying such rich information,
Yes.
and I want to honor that it might bring up questions. In your pouch, there are Post-its. We're going to create a parking lot.
Okay.
So that if a question comes up and it's not being answered, you're going to write it down. And at the end, if they get to your question, you can just move it to the side. And if not, we'll compile those, and we can do a follow-up communication out. So we want you to, we want to honor that it's sparking new ideas for you, which is the intent of this. This is a dialogue, so please capture your questions. This is your virtual parking lot, like one question per Post-it.
Thank you.
All right.
Great idea.
And if you don't have Post-its in there, there's index cards. And we can pass out some more if you need them.
All right, I think one more question that was the main one for me, so then I can stop talking. You can hear from these teachers. But the next one was around specifically Title I schools and the use of AAP curriculum. So a second point, there are probably about 8 goals around advanced academics and strategic plan that are available on board docs and I think on the strategic plan site for the Fairfax County Public webpage. But in addition to us looking at our gaps in level 4 identification, there is also now a brand new measurement about the use of AAP curriculum in every classroom. So it has helped us to, how many of you have been to a parent information meeting about the continuum services, and you already know what I mean when I say level 1 services? Okay, so level 1 services has always been, for years, the 9 critical and creative thinking strategies, and that's what every student gets. This year we redefined it, and now it's the 9 critical and creative thinking strategies plus at least once a quarter, every classroom teacher should be using a minimum of 1 advanced academic curriculum resource. So the strategies are really easy, something you could do, like before you leave today, I could be like, give me an analogy for what being in tonight's meeting was like, or what was 1 plus minus an interesting thing about tonight's meeting. Those are like things you can do on the fly. Curriculum's more in depth. It takes more time, it takes more training, and that's what we're now asking for all classroom teachers to use. Now last spring was the baseline measurement year. The teachers did not even know, because I don't think it was determined until the spring that that was going to be a measure. So on totally cold, without telling teachers this is something we're going to measure, our baseline measurement was that 37% of the classrooms in Fairfax were already using at least 1 experience per quarter. So four experiences in a year minimum. That's still a lot of room to grow, but anecdotally, and we won't collect this until June, but anecdotally, we are hearing that we know that's going to go way up for next year. So I will say that in the preliminary data that we looked at, I don't see any sort of a pattern about Title I or not Title I. Where I do see a pattern is it's always, and I think this is true for a lot of things, it's always in the what are the competing initiatives that are going on in a school? Are there 5 things that teachers are already expected to get professional development on, and is AAP curriculum a priority in the list of priorities? And that depends on what the needs of the school. So, and again, having a full-time resource teacher there to coach in real time is huge. I mean, we can't get enough. We'll keep saying. All right, so the next set of questions is around central selection. Jamie, go ahead.
So central selection is the selection process for the level 4 services, which is the full-time advanced academic services. There's a separate screening process that we're not really going to talk about right now for level 2 and 3 services that happens at the school level. So level 4 services are getting ready to occur. I think we're all getting ready in that mode. I actually just came. I had my parent meeting about it tonight and then came here. But it starts by parents or teachers initiating a referral. So filling out a form explaining why the student needs the full-time differentiation in all 4 content areas. There is the pool candidate, which Kirsten mentioned for 2nd grade, and that's really so we don't miss any students and we're giving all students an opportunity who might need to access that curriculum. The school creates a file using a combination of work samples, something called the Gifted Behaviors Rating Scale, which is a really unique tool that was developed by our county to help document all those things you say, the kids say and do, all the behaviors they, because you can't document that on paper. So it's a really nice scale to report that information and the strengths we're seeing with students. It includes test data, it could include parent letters of recommendation from people in the community, and it's really a holistic picture of the student. And involving the parent in that process is extremely important, especially I think we can all speak to, especially at Title I schools, is getting our parents involved and making sure they're aware of it. And once the file is submitted to central selection, it's really kind of cool. It's all stakeholders from across the county. There's teachers, advanced academic resource teachers, psychologists, counselors, principals, central office staff members. Everyone has to receive training on how to read a file and determine if a student is eligible or ineligible. And then when the day comes, it's 6 people sitting around a table, and it's a mix of regions. So the AAP office does a really great job of making sure there's at least 1 person from each region there So it's a really diverse perspective looking at the student. The files are read silently by each reader, and then the reader determines whether that student is eligible or ineligible for services. And it has to have a consensus of 4, so the file keeps getting read until 4 people agree one way or the other. The nice thing about it is it doesn't stop there. There's an oversight committee that also goes through and looks at the files to spot check them. And then for students who are ineligible for level 4 services, there is an appeal process for parents, and all parents of students who are ineligible are notified via mail about that process so that they're aware of their options to present more information about their student for level 4 services. And the other nice thing that's nice about our county is it's every year parents can refer from 2nd through 7th grade. So we understand that students' needs change over time, and so just because they may not be eligible for level 4 services in 2nd grade going into 3rd, maybe by the time they're ready for middle school, that's an option.
And teachers can also refer, so especially at the Title I schools where parents may not be aware of the process, a lot of our teachers refer. And we have also had self-referrals where the children refer themselves, which is very interesting. And the other thing that Jamie was talking about, the gifted behavior rating scale, we just changed. So it's no longer 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're actually looking at behaviors that are happening in the classroom and comparing them to the students that are in the classroom. And looking at students with like backgrounds, with like needs. So you're not comparing students to, so it's like Title I schools comparing each other. And that way you're getting a child that could possibly have that potential. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for the potential in a child.
So just one quick clarification. Jamie said 6 people at a table, and that's true. But it would be a room full of tables of 6.
Yeah, it's a room, yeah. It's like
Over
hundreds of
multiple
people, and it occurs over 6 days. So it's a very, it's not a rush process. People really take their time reading the file, getting to know the student. And it's not always easy, but the nice thing about it is you're not the only one reading the file, that it's going to keep getting read, and then there's all pieces after too to make sure that we're providing, it's really about providing the right level of service for the student.
And Patty, when you said you're looking at behaviors, you mean gifted behaviors.
Gifted, thank you.
We're not looking at students' social emotional behaviors and using that as a barrier or access to the program. That's not a factor at
Yes,
all.
we're always getting those questions from parents.
Yes.
And no, we're looking at the gifted behaviors in the classroom. So we're always telling the parents, it's the classroom observations from the teacher.
And it's always student strengths too. We're not looking at their deficits. We're looking at their strengths and their ability.
The four areas of behavior that we look at are exceptional ability to learn, exceptional application of knowledge, exceptional creative productive thinking, and exceptional motivation to succeed. So those are the behaviors. Very good and important clarification. Thank you. All right. So the other question related to that is, what are central office expectations for communication to parents around this? We expect every local school to have 2 parent meetings. That's where Jamie came from right before she was here. So around this time of year, they should be wrapping up, but there might be some into like the 2nd week of December. But the very first one would be it would be somewhere in the earlier months, which is talking about the continuum of services and what are the available options. We actually talk about kindergarten through 12th grade. We've heard from a lot of parents, if I knew that was where they were heading, I might have paid attention down here a little bit more. So we like to give the whole picture. We've also gotten some feedback this year that was overwhelming. So we're trying to find the balance of like giving you the whole. So another thing that we did this year is we put those same presentations that happen at the local school, we have put them on our public website, and they are in both English and in Spanish spoken. So parents can read them in English or Spanish. They can listen in English or Spanish. They're broken up into chapters. So if you're like, I really just want to know about this gifted behavior rating scale business, you can go to that slide and listen to that information if you would like. But that is one thing that was new this year, and that came out of our advisory committee charge last year about how can we do better with outreach and communication. So we have the 2 meetings. They're also available anytime anybody wants to access them on our public website. There are newsletter articles that go out once at the beginning of the year, and those are translated into all the different languages. There's also reminders that everybody sends out around this time of year just to let everybody know that January 9th is the referral deadline for level 4 screening. So we provide those resources for the schools to use, and then beyond that, certainly other schools do other parent outreach and communications, but those are the things that are required of us. Anything to add?
So January 9th.
January 9th.
Yeah.
All right.
No extension.
No,
No matter if
I
it
know.
snows or ice, you better turn it in early.
We say turn it in first day of school if you want.
After, I don't know what the appeal deadline is this year, but the decision's mailed like end of March, beginning of April, and then the appeal last year it was like May 20th for something like that. So May 20th, and then parents are made aware of the final decision in June.
We do it a little bit earlier than that just because of the session, so it's bump everything up by
every
about a
year.
month. But it is all on our website. And if you have any questions, call our main number or email me and we can definitely get you those dates. All right, the next one was about longitudinal.
The website is, if you go to, the new Fairfax County website is awesome. It used to not be this easy to find things, but you can literally go into fcps.edu and AAP or creative and critical thinking, and it'll take you directly to that page. So just going to fcps.edu and type AAP, that will pop up the hub page for everything.
And that's another big thing that we changed over the summer as a result of our advisory committee, was to try to make our website more, the language to be more accessible. And what we did was the things we get asked the most, they're on the hub page. So if you search AAP, it will bring you to that main page. And there's an accordion list of these are the main questions. So some will be about screening. There'll be one that says parent presentations. There will be one that says continual services. There's one about special populations. So click on those, and then it will take you where on the site that is, because it's easy to get lost when you're in here. We always tried to give a lot of information, but then that became too much because you get lost in the information. All right, so longitudinal data. I think I already talked a little bit about that in terms of our philosophy of, when we looked at longitudinally, mostly what we're looking at is how do we do over time with different subgroups of students signing up for what's available. Once you hit 7th grade, everything's open enrollment, but we know there's also a lot of things that we want to make sure we're doing at the academic advising process and making sure that students are supported when they get in there. So most of our data looks longitudinally have to do with our young scholars and working with schools to make sure that the young scholars get signed up for things. And then, but there's a lot of work that's not official that I think the resource teachers do.
One thing that a lot of us are doing, especially at the Title I schools, is doing some kind of course selection counseling, especially with our young scholars in 6th grade. So I've actually already started my, shout out to the Title I office. We have a Student Leadership Academy at Riverside also that we are able to fund. But the Student Leadership Academy is a year-long after-school program that we have at Riverside and a few other Title I schools have. That we actually put all of our 6th grade young scholars in, and it's a year-long program about learning about what careers you might want to do and how to prepare for that. And they actually create projects through computers, so they don't have to go too much off task, to help them show their goals. But as a result of that, not all schools have that, but what all schools do have is an AART, and the AART does some course selection counseling with the 6th graders, especially the young scholars, so in collaboration with the counselors. It's really nice that the AAP offices work with other offices, including school counseling. And so the counselors are aware of young scholars. We sit down and we meet and try to make sure that all of our young scholars are taking at least one honors course in middle school. So they're really pushing themselves for the appropriate challenge in a subject that they might be a little bit more interested in or have some strengths in.
One of the things that we feel really strongly about middle school is kind of one of those things, like once students get in there and they see honors next to their name on something, that creates a certain mindset and expectation for them going on. So I view honors classes at the middle school as kind of a playground for rigor, that you should definitely be done. There's no like transcript that's going to matter for your college at that point. Get in there and try is really what we want the message to be to kids. Like pick the area that is going to either come, you already know that's kind of an area that you're good at, or just I'm really passionate about this area, because when you're passionate about it, you'll work hard at it, and that's what we want students to sign up for. All right, Chris, access to rigor, my favorite one.
Okay, so my questions, there are 2 questions. What practices are in place for students who are not in AAP to receive access to rigorous instruction? And I read that mainly as not in level 4 advanced academics, so at the school-based level, and how are students being challenged. And so I guess at a very baseline, Kirsten already mentioned the level 1 services. So every student in Fairfax County is guaranteed that level 1 service, which is the critical and creative thinking lessons monthly. And then some schools, by principal's decision in collaboration with the ART, may expect that different amounts of times. But our role has really shifted a little bit, particularly lately with the county expectation of quarterly AAP curriculum experiences in classroom teachers' rooms, in every classroom teacher's room. And so that's something that they've supported. They created a document over the summer that's linked on all the classroom, gen ed classroom pacing guides, planning and pacing guides, called the Access to Rigor guide. And so that's something that's, yes. Rigor is basically just a challenge, enrichment that students face. So a rigorous education we call access to rigor.
So it's not an acronym.
No, it is actually rigor.
Yeah, I know, he knows difference.
Yeah. So.
We call it the A2R in our
Okay.
office.
Yeah, we do have a lot of actors.
We have lived up to Fairfax expectations.
We have two
Twice exceptional.
Yeah, so, yeah, we're not short on acronyms. But, so that's something, you know, as a full-time AART in my school this year, it has been really integral to my role in coaching teachers, supporting teachers, and planning meetings, making sure that they're able to implement this curriculum. And, you know, just today I was in 3 different planning meetings talking with teachers about 3 different curriculum experiences they're planning for their students. And so I think in looking at the ARTs as full-time roles and then not spending too much of their time like doing specials. I don't know if you're aware, but you know, when they took away the early release Mondays, a lot of ARTs were then tasked with giving teachers that extra planning time. And so there was a point of time in the past that I was in maybe 50 hours, about half of my role each week was in giving teachers planning time, so working with students. And that sort of takes away that opportunity for me to model, to coach, and to support this. I can, you know, do a little bit in my own little bubble in that way, but I can't make the impact school-wide as much. So, so that's one layer, that level 1 services. But also, all schools are expected to offer advanced math in one form or another, whether that be a designated classroom that students are identified for advanced math and take math at a more enriching level. It could be in small groups within their math workshop, or it could be with schools that have a local level 4 or a level 4. Some students could push in to those classrooms for advanced math. So differentiation just generally in every subject area is an expectation. And in the collaborative planning meetings that teams hold, we kind of ask these 4 questions. What is it that students need to know and learn? How are we going to know if they've learned it? And then what do we do if they don't get it? What do we do if they do get it? And I think a lot of the pressure historically has been, what do you do when they don't get it? And you know, that's where all the testing data is really, you know, are you going to meet your SOL, like pass rates and all this, and get those students up to that level. But as AARTs, we're kind of able to go in to those collaborative planning meetings and make sure we're a voice for, okay, but what about the students who do get it? Are we going to address their needs as well? And not only that, but even the kids who maybe are struggling with something, let's not just use that deficit thinking about them. How can we maybe, you know, bridge that gap for them, but also push them ahead as well? So that's, I think that differentiation in all subject areas is another way that all students can access an advanced coursework. The Portrait of a Graduate skills, are you all familiar with those? That's part of the county's initiative as well. The POG skills, particularly that relate to the ART role, I would say like the critical and creative thinker, that's something now that the county has said we are trying to create critical and creative thinkers, and that really comes, you know, directly from work that we've been doing all along. So now it's for all students. Goal-directed and resilient individual is another one of those Portrait of a Graduate attributes that we really work with as well. And then, you know, school-specific initiatives. Our school, for example, is expecting teachers to use project-based learning a number of times per year. And then, I think, again, my role as AART being full-time there, I've been able to be on leadership teams, coaching teams, and I've had a loud voice for our SIP and the school improvement plan and kind of setting those school, priorities and initiatives. And so we've often had in the SIP goals related to advanced academic curriculum or strategies being used in the classrooms. Let's see. I think, kind of more broadly, I think, I mentioned that deficit thinking. Sometimes in Title I schools, teachers look at students maybe who, are ESOL students who are second language learners, and they're looking at that gap. They're looking at kids who maybe came in with not as much background knowledge, and they're looking at those gaps. And I think a really important role of ours is to be a voice for looking at assets, looking at, but what can these students do? Going back to that gifted behaviors rating scale, those aren't all just academic skills. Those are creativity, spatial reasoning, even specifically like being a good translator and, leadership and supporting other students. So I think that we have, a really big role as coaches and change agents in the school, kind of looking at equity and access for all the students. I don't know if you all wanted to jump in and add anything else, but.
Well, I was thinking also with being the advanced academic resource teacher, our role is very, I think it varies a lot. I know at our school, we actually have 3 advanced academic resource teachers. Our principal really believes in getting the AAP curriculum into all of the classrooms, even from our little kindergartners all the way up to 5th grade. So in addition to being in all the collaborative team meetings from kindergarten through 5th, we also are in the classrooms. We have a local level, 3rd and 4th and 5th grade. And we co-teach. The advanced academic research teachers co-teach in those classrooms for language arts or math. We also go into some of the other classrooms and co-teach and model for the teachers. And with the new strategic plan of having an AAP experience in all of the classrooms once a quarter, you can see teachers now, because they've already had that, but they're now trying to figure out how many they can get in. So they're loving the differentiation. So, taking a Jacob's Ladder, I have the kindergarten teachers take the Jacob's Ladder and let's look at sequencing. And they came back and they're like, well, I don't know if they're going to be able to do it. But then they came back to the next collaborative team meeting. They're like, you wouldn't believe that you had them all in order. And they're like, what's next on the ladder? So the teachers are loving it. And I think that's probably one of our most important roles, is building that capacity in our teachers. And this summer, I had, I think it was 3 brand new teachers to the Young Scholars Program. And they were like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I said, just go to training and I'll be there for you. Now they're teaching their teams. So, and they aren't advanced academic resource teachers. They are starting to take courses. One was in one of my courses for the fall. So I just think that it's one of those things that schools have the buy-in. They see the results. And with our populations, the students are interested in it. And that's why we have, some students, especially at the 5th grade level, I'll refer myself because I see myself in that. So.
I like how Patty said too, like building capacity in teachers, but I think another big part of our role is building capacity in families. And really, I know my school, we talk a lot about empowering parents to be advocates for their children. So a big part of our role as the advanced academic research teacher role is making sure that parents are aware of options for their child and how to support their child to reach their full potential. So that's a big thing that we do too, is making sure parents are aware of the options and how to support their children in getting those options.
Because we have the liaisons at our school, and we meet with the parent and the liaison to help them through the process of referral. So when I say liaison, we have a Spanish liaison and an Arabic liaison.
I have some definition questions. Mike, can I ask a question? Go ahead.
She's
like biting her tongue.
Can we give her a high five, Lucia?
Yeah. Yeah, she's saying
So they
it.
did on your marketing set.
You said, could we run to co-locate? Can you talk a little bit more about the terminology you're all using about the program? Like, I got level 4, and I know there's centers. And I know there's level 1 and 2, and that's certain ages. And then that sounds like that it also goes to higher ages that are not in level 4. But see, what's co-locate, real quick?
You mean the local level 4? Is that what?
Local
Local.
versus
So we have,
district?
yeah, we have,
versus center?
A special.
so
Is there
level
only
4,
center and local?
for level
For
4.
level 4.
Every elementary school has levels 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
29 schools have centers,
Okay.
which is when kids come from multiple schools
Okay, I got
to
you.
be in a center.
So there's 29
We
centers.
also
They're
have,
found county eligible,
Not just Title
not just Title I.
Some Title I schools, like Riverside, we have a level 4 center and we're Title I school.
Right, it's like Belvedere.
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
that's not
right.
how it goes.
Belvedere, that's right.
Okay.
we've got the full representation up here, because we've got a center school with Jamie, we've got a local level 4 at Glen Forest. Now, Glen Forest would go to Belvedere, but what they decided was,
Columbia is where my
Okay.
brother's going, I know they have it too.
Okay.
So how many schools have local?
65 or 67, I think it's
Because
67.
I'm gonna write it on the card. I'm gonna ask for a breakdown, because I'm trying to understand, like, where is the access? Who has the access? How's the access
So the
determined?
local level 4 ones, they pretty much advocated for themselves. to
So
have-
could we, could we say we wanted every Title I school had the population? So I'm just
So
trying to.
that's another strategic plan goal, which is if there's not a level 4 center or a local level 4 option, that by 2024, Karen Keys
What's
tomorrow, I'll give you a wrong.
5 years.
We need to, so I will say, starting a local level 4 is a commitment, and it doesn't happen like that. It's something that you put, the principal has to prepare the staff, prepare the community, and there's a lot of professional development that goes on with it, because if you can name it a level 4, but if people aren't ready to teach the curriculum on a full-time basis, it's not really a level 4.
I was just thinking about barriers to people feeling comfortable with their child going somewhere completely different.
That's
versus
one of the
a
big reasons they
community
started.
school.
Yeah, and that's
With
one of the
people
reasons a
that
lot
say
of them stay
So-
at the Title I
Okay.
schools.
So we have maps that show where they are. We also have
I didn't see that.
spreadsheets that
I'll
show
write
where they
that
are,
down.
and we can
Don't
get
worry.
that to you.
So what you're saying was unique about Glen Forest?
So Glen Forest is a local level 4. So local level 4s means that if a child from Glen Forest is found eligible, when they get their letter of eligibility, it says, I would like to attend Belvedere for the center. I would like to stay at Glen Forest and receive local level 4 services, or I would like to receive school-based services. I want to just get level 2 or 3, or I defer services. And those are the 4 choices that parents would have.
But you have changed it, so now the local level 4 school is at the top. So I would like to stay at Glen Forest Elementary, or I would like to.
So the difference is when you have a lot of schools feeding into a center, you'll have multiple classes that have a full class. Whereas at Glen Forest, do you remember like how many third graders were eligible for Glen Forest last year?
We
Or
had
ballpark?
10.
Okay, so that's not a whole class. So what that means is the principal has to decide what model they want to use to make sure, because you don't get a teacher for 10 kids. You have to have a whole class. So they decide what's the model that you use at your school.
Well, typically, we look at the students that have been referred, and then at the end of the school year, when Jamie was talking about the school-based screening, then we would look at recommendations from the teachers. And then we would place them in, looking at their SOL scores, looking at their end-of-the-year performances.
What kind of SOL scores is looked for?
Well, it depends, because we don't just go on scores. We go, we look at the whole child. So, if we have a child that maybe had an advanced score, 500, and maybe did well in their e-cards, but did not produce any creative work or any type of work in the classroom, that may not be a child that we're looking at. We're looking at children that can actually perform in the classroom. So that's how we look at the whole child. Because sometimes a lot of the Title I schools have students that may not do as well on those cognitive ability tests. So we can't just look at scores. We have to look at their performance. So we rely heavily on the teachers for their gifted behavior rating observations.
So out of those 10, how many chose to go to Belvedere?
Oh, those are the ones that stayed.
So
We had 4 that went to Belvedere.
Okay, so you have 14.
And that's different at all the different level boards, because Glen Forest is a fairly large school, and if you have a smaller school, the number of kids who might be eligible wouldn't necessarily be as high. So the principal, that's one model. It sounds like your model is that you have the class that stays together all day.
Yes.
So at some other local level 4s, they might do something, there's a couple, like some of our local level 4s actually have a whole class of students. So some of them will just have a whole class for the whole day. Some might say, if I were to split that whole class into 2 groups, I still have like 13 kids in each class. I'm going to do 2 groups of 13 and add into both of those classes, because that means I can give more to a lot more students. So that's another option. And another model that we frequently see is we're going to keep that cluster of the eligible students together if it's a smaller number, because the research says you want to have at least 8 students in a cluster. But we're going to add in students by subject area strength so that they're getting the advanced curriculum more often based on their subject area strength. So if math is their strength, they'll push in for math. And so they do flexible grouping at the grade level and allow for that to happen. So you have to be creative and flexible when you're working that out for local level 4s.
Right.
What is,
Typically for our level 4 classrooms, they're between 20 and 22
per teacher?
per teacher.
Teaching assistant as well?
Well, we have a co-teacher, so I'm co-teaching.
Did you guys cover all the questions yet?
I think, Jamie, did we get enough at the last one?
I mentioned it, and
Okay.
making sure, like, the big part of our role is making sure that the parents can advocate for their students.
Great.
So I have a question. How do you get access?
We don't have time for questions.
We don't have.
No, I said you can talk.
I wanted to make sure they got all these.
Can I ask you to just clarify her last statement?
Oh,
She said there were different models. I just want to make sure you understand my question. Can I ask you,
Okay.
what are the different models you've seen? Do I need to say anything that, so you understand this question?
The local level 4 model?
Yeah, the different
I have
models
a
of
graphic
local level 4,
that I
right?
just used in a parent
Okay, good.
presentation
You
2 weeks
understand
ago.
my
I will
question.
give you my
Good.
graph.
So actually, Kirsten, if you wouldn't mind providing me that information, and I'll make sure that I compile all the questions. I'll let Kirsten know what the questions are, and then whatever supporting documents, we'll make sure that that is included in the follow-up email to everyone.
Let's get to her question now, she was waiting.
Oh, my question was, how do you have access to seeing, if the teacher referred your child, or what that referral was, or even what they placed your child on a gifted scale? Like how do you get access to seeing that? How do you receive that?
You can just request it.
Yeah. You can request it.
So
Because-
for level,
office.
yeah, for level 4 screening, if we're gonna refer a child to level 4 screening, we notify the parent that we want to refer the child and give them an option to add anything to the file. The parents can see the screening file after too. After it's created, once the file is submitted, they can use.
No, but at the school.
At the school.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
school.
And for level 2, for level 2 and 3 services, we actually have to notify the parents via a letter and have them sign it acknowledging that they want their child to receive that service, so you would have that.
So,
But
yeah, I received that 2 years ago, and it's still on the report card, but I'm just not sure what that service exactly is. But it's a level 2.
Yeah.
It's not beyond that. So I'm a little bit confused about the process.
So for level 2, that I would go back and talk to the classroom teacher, because they deliver the level 2 services, and I would maybe write to the classroom teacher and the ART together, and they can give more information. Once you get to level 3, so, I mean, I don't want to get too technical, but level 2, development, and it doesn't fall under the definition of what we end up reporting to the state. We do it because we know that it's important to differentiate in subject area strengths. But when you get to level 3 and 4, those are the ones that we have to report to the state, and that's where, when you are in level 3, you get a quarterly report that says this is what happened when you had direct services with an advanced academic resource teacher. And at level 4, we have a set on the public website of these are the extended standards. So your marks on a progress report for a student who's in level 4 is actually, the numbers will look the same, but the actual standard that you're being assessed on is different. And that's, we put an insert in the envelope that says, go to the website so you can see what the standards are for the level 4 center. But for level 2, it's just that differentiation within a specific subject area, and the classroom teacher is probably the best person to ask about that, like what is being used and done.
Yeah, I have asked that.
Okay.
And I think they're a little confused too.
Okay.
So.
The resource teacher or the classroom teacher?
No, the classroom teacher.
Okay.
So I asked that last year, because I saw that on the report card last year, and she didn't seem to quite know exactly what it was.
Okay.
And I asked that this year, she too didn't seem to know quite exactly.
I would go to the advanced academic resource teacher.
Because I even said, I did a conference with them, and I said, well, look, it says it right here. I don't know, what does it mean?
Okay.
And so I was a little confused.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
She said same.
Last year they were still part-time.
So we have 8 participants on participating virtually, and one comment and a question from them. First of all, the comment is, always love hearing that our teachers get some professional development. Thank you for that. The question is regarding referral. What is the final year for referral? They're asking. 7th grade. Okay. All right. Thank you. And then
I should clarify. Referral would happen in 7th grade. The services would happen in 8th grade.
Okay.
So 8th grade is the final year that the services happen, but the referral would happen in 7th.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that.
You said anybody can put forth a level 4 referral, like a parent or a teacher. If a parent puts a referral in, does the school act as a gatekeeper and look at those and decide which ones they want to pass on to this committee that you talked about?
No, we don't.
We don't. We put a file together, so referrals submitted, we put a file together with what we have on that student with strength. You can submit up to 6 work samples, but if I don't have, 6 strong work samples, I'm not going to just move forward. I'll submit what I have and try to, do as much as we can to give those students the opportunities.
And all the requirements are on the website.
Yeah.
They're on the website.
We're going to pull up the website right now, and I think that goes back to a lot of the questions I'm hearing. Kirsten Led was asking, there should have been 2 parent sessions already, and a lot of us raised our hands, but maybe we need to go back to thinking about, are we hearing what's happening? It's up here, it's up there.
Okay.
So that first session in the fall, when they talked about the continuum, if you went to your school, that was when they described all those levels. The second session that they're recently having is the screening process. That's why there's 2 meetings at your school.
And what's nice this year is actually that because I had a lot of families who couldn't come to my presentation, but the presentation is actually available, as Kirsten was
So you're going to see it right now.
Online with voice recording on there of what we said at the meeting, so parents can access them at any time.
So all she did is went to the main public website, and the search box, she typed AAP, and there's the parent presentation right there, the second drop down. And those are the 2 presentations. Your school may have only done 1 thus far, but the second one is either happening now or coming. Do I have that correct?
If you were to click on the identification process and you find out about it, this is it. And you could say, what is the jitter? And you could go down to the
AAP services. This presentation will provide families with information. A school-based committee who knows your child will complete the Gifted Behavior Rating Scale to provide evidence of gifted behaviors observed. They will note how often the student.
So that wouldn't have been done as a movie at your school. That would have been done live by one of your fantastic advanced academics resource teachers as a supplement. If you missed that meeting, that's why they exist here. So there's 2 sessions that would have happened. So many of your questions are about the continuum. Go to session 1. Session 1 was the continuum. That means what's the difference of 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I have that. And session 2, which is happening now or has already happened, is selection process for 4. So if you missed those sessions at your school, here's another opportunity for you here. So you might be thinking now, remember the purpose of our meeting of TPAC is, what information do I need to carry back as a representative that I want to develop this relationship with my principal and ask questions around outreach? Maybe you might want to go back and think about, like, I wonder how many people did attend our meeting. Are we keeping any rosters or data? Did we get 10 families or did we get 50? So let's also remember the role of this group is not just information getting, is to go back and plan with your principal and think, what can we do with this information? That's the purpose of the TPAC role. Do I have that part right too?
Oh, yes.
So those are things now you might be thinking about, what am I going to do with this information? If you had a lot of questions, chances are perhaps parents in your school do too. So you can go back to your principal and say, I heard, I learned this great information. How can we partner together?
I do want to mention one quick thing. How many of you were aware that we're undergoing an external study right now about our programs? Okay. So one of the things, we have more ideas. One of the things that we're kind of, we have 4 researchers from 4 universities who have been doing focus groups. Anybody here do? Thank you. Thank you, Patty. So there were, over the course of 6 days, 3 different researchers were doing focus groups with multitude. I can put that in the questions if you want to know who were in focus groups. I can tell you all the different groups that they talked to. And they are going to do a preliminary report to the school board. I think it's January 21st. The final report is in March, but the preliminary report, just of their process. And I'm not sure where in the stage of everything they're going to be in terms of any recommendations or not. It might still be too soon, but that will be in January. So that is we're tweaking little things here and there to do a lot better. There's certainly lots of things we can do, but we're not making huge changes because we want to find out what are the recommendations.
Can I put an early plug in for next December? Because December seems to be advanced academic month. So we all are prepared to come back with 4 things that we really need to be delivering and things we should be looking for.
Yeah.
That'd be helpful.
We'd love to get out there. We need you as ambassadors. All the family engagement and outreach is we need.
And I just wanted to comment, as a parent who went through this process for level 4, I did find it, and I think it's probably got better the last couple of years, confusing and also very stressful. So I just wanted to give that feedback because you're not sure, do I put this or do I put that, or what should I say or not say? And it's just, it feels like it feels like I apologize. It is stressful. So
And it has changed because I went through it with my own children.
Yeah, this was only 2 years ago, so it's only 2 years ago. It's stressful.
So the stress is coming from it feeling complicated. We have done a lot to try to simplify the language and the directions, and hopefully you can feel that if you get on the site and feel it now.
Okay.
I think there's another level of stress that comes just from being in Northern Virginia. And, I mean, it's
I get that
a challenge. You think
This is
that
New York.
Yeah.
No, I had to take a step back, this is, it's great.
Yeah, I feel like we need this committee to help us with having parent contact with the advanced secondary teacher because we're in the schools to really make the process easier. And there's nothing I love more than sitting down with a parent and talking about their child and the goals that we have together and partnering to make sure that student is receiving the support they need. So that's why we really, value you guys and helping us with that.
Thank you. We never have enough time. We will never, ever have enough time. We thank you all.
Me.
Before you submit your questions, before you lose your thinking, do our exit together.
I took pictures. Thank you.
And I just want to alert everybody to our next meeting, which will be January 21st, 2020. It'll be a screening of the movie Resilience, but it's going to be downstairs in the cafe to have more space. Popcorn? I don't know, what is our popcorn crews say? Will there be popcorn?
I think we can maybe.
Microwave popcorn can help. I had an air popper too. Or some Cody.
You want to bring your air popcorn? Who's gonna bring his air
Oh,
popcorn?
it's taking care of the popcorn. Right, that
So it's gonna be kind of like a
It will
two-part.
not be paid by Title I.
Paid by title.
Sorry, I put my compliance hat on. Although it is an allowable expense because it's a parent involvement activity.
It's kind of a two-part. The 21st, meaning January 21st, there'll be a screening and there'll be social worker or counselor from the county is going to kind of debrief after the film. And then February 18th, it's going to be really the parent component. What can we do? What's going on in our schools? And how can we make sure that, because resilience, for those who aren't familiar, it's about becoming trauma informed. And there's actually screening at least one school last year, but we want to use this platform and invite others at your school again. We'll have more space at the cafe to view the movie. And February 18th is going to be how we as parents can both find out about and make sure that the schools are becoming, their level of trauma sensitivity.
What's the next meeting? You said, don't we have one in January?
No, that's for January 21st is the screening movie. And then February 18th is going to be more discussion about what it's going to be from a parent perspective and our role, what we can do in our individual schools. Again, thank you, Esther, and thank you, Kirsten.
We do have a principal in the room. I just wanted to say a shout out to one of our principals that came out tonight. Springfield Estates. Thank you.
They kick us out around soon. Get your children if they're here. Please.
Leave the kids.
We provide childcare, not child.
Thank you.
Cafe is on the first floor, is that right?
Now they know who you are.
Yes.
I know, finally.
Mike, the cafe is on the first floor, right?
Yes, when you walk in.
My name is Mashika Davis. I get at Haley for, but it was